Good evening, everybody. So, my name is Luke, and as was said before, I am speaking on behalf of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Make-A-Wish is such an amazing program, and I'm going to do my speech a little bit different than I usually do tonight. I've done a couple of things for Make-A-Wish, and usually I talk about the wish itself and everything. And that was awesome. Make-A-Wish sent my family and I to Hawaii so I could swim with manta rays, which were these cool things I had been learning about in 3rd grade, and it was like the coolest thing for me. But today I'd actually like to talk about my diagnosis with dilated cardiomyopathy and how that even got me towards Make-A-Wish and how that just has done so much for me with Make-A-Wish. And so basically, that's what I'm going to do. So my story all starts when I was 6 years old. I was playing video games with my younger brother, and I lost the game, right? And I was all mad. So I go into the bathroom all mad. I am really hot, and I just need to cool off. But then all of a sudden, I start feeling really funny. And so next thing I know it, I'm on my bathroom floor crying. And my babysitter's just like, oh my God, is he really this frustrated over a video game? But then she walks in and it wasn't the video game, and I was just in tears, bawling, and I felt really weird. So she called her mother and I went to the hospital, and they said it was probably some one-time thing. It was gonna be okay, probably just the video game. Anyway, so then a couple of years later, I'm playing in the backyard with my brother, and then next thing I know it, I faint, and then I wake up, and I'm crying, and my mother's like, Andrew, why are you crying? To my little brother. And he's like, it's not me, it's my older brother. And so then that's when we started figuring out something was wrong. So over the next year or so, we went through a bunch of testing, and that in itself is anybody who's been to the hospital to get treatment for anything, you know how exhausting it is going to a hospital, especially when your hospital is 3 hours away from your home. So basically what happened was over this period, they were looking for seizures and stuff, and after a while they actually figured out that it was my heart. And so what happened is they were testing my heart, seeing if that was where the problem was coming from. So they're doing an echocardiogram, taking pictures of the heart and everything, and then so the lady doing the test just gets up for a moment, and she's like, I'll be right back. So there's all these people running around in the hallway asking, is he here yet? Is he here yet? And I'm just sitting there no, whatever. There was a movie they were playing for me, so it wasn't a big thing at the moment. But then a little while later, my doctor walks in, and me and him have had a pretty good relationship since that moment. But when I first met him, he was pretty scary. He was a bald man, and he's probably going to kick me. And he seemed very, fierce. And so I was just like, oh, God, who is this? Anyway, so it was him who described to me that I have dilated cardiomyopathy, and that it's basically this thing where my heart was, at the time, 4 times the size of any regular 9-year-old. I was 9 at the time when this happened. And he was just so amazed that I was doing so fine, and I had only had a couple of incidents. Anyway, with such a huge heart I had, and he's like, how is this kid just sitting there all fine? So when I was diagnosed, basically he walks in and he's just like, I'll be back in 5 minutes, be ready with a joke. So I'm just like, ooh, okay. Because out of all this time in the hospital, none of it made sense. It was super confusing for me. So this was actually something that made sense for me. It was oh, cool, I'm good at telling jokes. So I'm thinking of all the popsicle stick jokes I had gathered over the years. And then finally I'm like, okay, I know which one I'm going to tell him. So he walks back in. He's like, do you come up with your joke? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, let me hear it. So I go, what washes up on tiny beaches? So he's like, what? Microwaves. And to this day, that's one of my favorite jokes. So he's just there, and he's like this very serious man, and he just smiles. And that was like really special because, you know, he's like, he didn't laugh, like, but he didn't force his smile either. So it was like, okay, I got through to this guy. And so ever since then, I've been with him, and he is actually the one who referred me to Make-A-Wish. So it was because of him that I got to be a part of this wonderful program. I got to swim with the manta rays, which was this huge thing for me. And I've got to speak at all these cool events. And it's really been a blessing to have him there and Make-A-Wish there. Like being in the hospital through all those tests, I felt fine most of the time, but it was a lot of medication and a lot of change, and like when you're a kid, you just want to do stuff. And one of the biggest things that irritated me was I couldn't play dodgeball with my friends, and it was super tough, but people like my doctor and my family and Make-A-Wish have been there with me the entire time, and that's just been a blessing. So yeah, I'd like to thank you all for having me. Oh, and if I could, I'd like to tell you one more story about my doctor, because I put in my head that I would tell you this story because it's one of my favorites. My message is kind of done. This is just for fun. Anyway, so one day he's trying to describe something to me. It was during my initial diagnosis. I was there for a week, which was its own crazy thing. Anyway, so I had soup the night before, and then it was the next morning, and I wanted to get into the crackers that had been left over from my soup. So he's trying to describe this thing to me. It's about some medication or something. And I'm fumbling with this pack of crackers. And he's like, hey, look at me. I'm trying to talk to you here. I'm trying to tell you something important. So I'm like, okay, okay. So I put the crackers down. But then he keeps talking, and I'm getting bored. I'm just like, oh, man, he's going to be talking forever. So I go back. I go back to the crackers. And he's just like, Luke, put the crackers down. I'm serious. This is important. And my mom's like, Luke, put the crackers down. And so I put them down again, and he keeps talking. So what do? I go back to the crackers. So then he's pretty much had it. It's been a long week for all of us. He takes the crackers out of my hands, throws them on the ground, and just stomps on them. And that's like the one thing I remember out of that whole week, like of my diagnosis. That was the one thing that I remember was the most mortifying for me. And so then he puts the crackers on like the table next to my bed, and next thing I know it, I'm reaching for them again. I'd like to thank you all for letting me speak to you, and Make-A-Wish again is an awesome program.